Everyone, welcome back to the Fast 40 NASCAR DFS Army breakdown. We're taking a look at the NASCAR New Hampshire USA Today 301. Threw an extra lap in there for good measure, Taco.
Yep.
Short, flat track, 1 mile.
Yeah, very similar to a lot of the tracks we've been at recently.
I love it. I like consistency. We had no practice, though. We didn't really get qualifying, so, we're going to have to go by past knowledge. But you know what, Taco? Let me tell you something. We went by past history yesterday. And look what happened in the Xfinity Series.
Who
Vincenzo,
needs no stinking practice?
Winner. Jay Moore, winner. Helmet after helmet. First place, second place, third place, fifth, sixth, 10, 20. It's crazy. So many helmets. I got blurred vision. It's too many.
Yeah, hogging all the goods to ourselves once again.
Sorry.
What else is new? Xfinity has been really good this year.
I wish I had made more than 5 lineups because my lineups were really good yesterday. You guys had an incredible core. I'm looking at Vincenzo's lineup. First of all, congrats to Vincenzo. Congrats to Jay Moore. Another fucking win. Vincenzo's Sensomatic has been winning everything. This is like his third big win in the last week or so. You can see the lineup here. Bell, of course, Custer, Kvapel. These were all core plays. Van Giesbergen. These 4 players were core on the sheet. I mean, it was pretty easy to get there. Perkins was the top pick for a punt play on the sheet yesterday. So pretty much you just had to find your way onto low-owned pool to take one down. I had this combination of 5 with like Massey instead of Poole. And that was the difference for me. But I made this combination a few different times. So it was very reachable using elite notes from Brady. And, of course, the incredible projections that you had in the optimizer. Once again, guys, crushing it. NASCAR is far and away, the sport that we can really dominate the most here at the DFS Army. So I hope that everybody is enjoying this summer season of golf and NASCAR. We had a great MMA yesterday too. So and we've been really, really killing it with MMA and NASCAR and even a little golf action.
Yeah. And we've absolutely crushed this track type all season long. We've had really good results at Phoenix, Richmond, Martinsville, even Iowa last week. We did really well. It's been a good track type for us over the years. And this should be another by the books, very Richmond style race, but do get a little bit of volatility thrown in there with all of 6-7 laps of practice they got in. And then the threat of weather coming in. We may have a half race here, so we'll get into all that.
The weather's a major concern. You ever have a NASCAR race going and it's the middle and you're in first place and you're just like, end it now. Just end.
This is where we get those funky winners. It's been kind of a while since we've gotten a funky winner.
We had a race end early though a few weeks ago.
Yep.
It does happen. So we got weather concerns today, guys. It is what it is. We're going to deal with it. But as always, the first thing I want to talk about is this chart here, the historical averages. I know it's hard to see.
You'll notice the same trend as in Xfinity we saw yesterday. Starting positions 1 and 2 equally good and way better than the rest of the field. It's not close. Now, what makes this week different than most weeks here is the fact that usually practice and qualifying correlates heavily into race speed. The order was set by algorithm. So whoever's been doing well the last few weeks and just has a good overall average finish or whatever the algorithm uses to decide, usually it'd be qualifying order. In this case, it's starting order. But yeah, let's put Elliott and Blaney up in the front. And as a result, they're not even the favorites to win stage 1. Yes, we got the stage 1 and 2 props back on Bet365. Huge shout out to those guys. Please give us that prop every week. It's so vital. Definitely check that out. But this week it's looking like Toyota, especially JGR on top. JGR is even to the field. They're even to the rest of the entire field when it comes to the win odds here. So, yeah, it's pretty linear split. You can see guys starting 30th and back. Extremely risky here. Those are usually your lap traffic guys at a 1 mile track.
Yeah,
for the most part, you don't want to be risking those guys starting in the very rear unless it is a really, really good driver. And due to the starting order being pretty normal looking, just due to the nature of us using the preset order, mostly kind of going off points. Most of the good guys are starting to the front. Most of the guys in the back are just really bad. It's not like Xfinity where you got like guys in really, really good cars starting in the rear, like we saw with Bowman, Kvapil yesterday. Most of those guys starting in the back are going to be non-plays here for sure. You can see that. There's just no upside to the place differential here, but
the historic is telling the tale, and it shows that it is a linear path down the further back you go in starting order. It's very, very
clear. Plateau in the middle.
Yeah, I don't. It's not too much of a difference.
You just don't want to be getting lapped.
Between 16th or 30th. It's about the same, and then you have a little bit of drop off. And I think the driver rating will actually tell the tale even better. Yeah,
it was not as extreme as other short tracks we've seen.
This is pretty.
It's definitely pretty tiered off.
Yeah. This looks pretty extreme. I mean, there is a big difference here. I think part of this is because Truex just literally destroyed this track the last couple times, and so you got a little bonus for those 100 pluses or even 110 pluses. But you could see as you go down in vehicle quality, the scoring goes down as well. I feel like, by the way, Taco, I'm just going to say, I feel like this year that the scrubs are not as scrubby as they've been in the past. There's a couple of them, but like there's fewer of
the
them.
next gen car overall. And I guess there are a few guys where, with some silly season stuff, we've taken some teams that were for sure back end last year. Like look at Justin Haley, what he's been doing in the quote unquote Rick Ware racing car. I think it's 2 straight top 15 finishes for him. Like I'll get into it later. We get down to the punt value section here. He was highly impressive last week.
Let's go. I like it. All right. So we talked about the historical. Are there any other charts we need to look at the research station before we just
I look at the correlations tab because there are a few tracks that are pretty similar. You'll see Richmond be by far the closest. The only other true 1 mile short flat track we go to is Phoenix. And Phoenix is pretty darn similar, but I would say Richmond is the best track to look at. That's a super high correlation compared to the rest, 87%. It's a multi-groove track, so that's why you're seeing places like Kansas also correlate in pretty well. Seeing some of these multi-groove tracks get in there, so like Homestead, for example. This kind of lineup here just there aren't too many tracks that correlate super highly. You'd really want to look towards like the 70-80+% tracks, but Richmond especially, you want to look at who did well there. It's been a bit since we've gone to Richmond, unfortunately.
Also, it looks like all the flat, like Phoenix, kind of similar. Kansas intermediate, so it's not like that different. But what happened at Richmond? What happened?
A very, very, very similar track.
Do you remember what happened at Richmond? Because
JGR was untouchable.
JGR domination.
And once again, we're looking at a JGR domination type week. It's very straightforward with that.
Well, there you have it, right? JGR, Christopher Bell.
Yeah.
Denny Hamlin, D.Ham.
You'll notice here practice times looking kind of paltry. You throw in the fact that instead of doing the Group A, Group B split that we've been doing, we're supposed to be doing here to get rid of the traffic problem that fucks up lap times. They needed to work with what they had to work with. They canceled qualifying and they said, fuck it, we're going to try to get a little bit of a practice out there so we don't have a repeat of last week where you have some top guys like Denny Hamlin just completely miss the setup and whatnot. But that may still be a risk here as, there's just there basically no laps being taken here. They got maybe up to speed, like your tires start getting hot around like lap 6, and they called it off there. Bell didn't even take a lap. Hamlin only took 3 laps. So it's going to be really hard to trust and use the data that you see here. If we got the expected amount of laps, like 20, 30, 40 laps at least, had some guys take some long runs, we could get some real usable data. But You're not just going to be using grains of salt. You're going to be throwing piles of salt at the practice times here. Like Hocevar was the top and all the splits. Like it's kind of a mess.
Can't take too much out of this. Yeah, McDowell.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much we can take from this practice. So just a couple
of
laps.
So, especially with some of the slower guys, like they literally could have just been in traffic because all the guys were shoved on this tiny track. And they were just getting things sorted out. So I wouldn't go too crazy with any of the times.
All right. So we're going to mostly ignore. Wendy Brown, would you lock 4 drivers? No. No. 3, though, I'm cool with, Wendy.
It's a little absurd.
For 20 max? Yeah, I'll go through. I'll lock 3 if you want to just like balls it, especially a track like this, but not 4.
Yeah,
let the other 3 spots.
We got to talk about it here. So it looks like at like 5 or 6 p.m. or the lock is at 2. I don't know if we'll see the race get moved up an hour like yesterday. Probably not, but we might be able to get a bit the halfway point of this race in between like 2 and 5. But with severe weather coming and with how stingy they are with lightning holds, it really remains to be seen. I can't really tell you if this is going to be a race to halfway, because that's what we were expecting all yesterday. And then the cell cleared up. We ended up getting the whole race in pretty easily. As for today, I mean, it's looking like it very much could be a rain shortened race. We might have to plan for a bit of that. And
how do you plan for that?
Yeah. So if this goes to halfway here, you get 150 laps. Or I think it's like the end of stage 2. So you have like the first stage is pretty short. And then the last 2 stages are like equal, about 115. I think it's 115, then 116 laps. The first stage is 70 laps. So it reduces the lap count from 301 to, let's say we get 185 laps in here. It's going to reduce the overall importance of lead lap scoring, and it will benefit the place differential guys. And it'll also, usually we see guys kind of finishing where they're not really supposed to, because the field is still a little bit shaken up from aggressive pit strategy calls. We'll see a little bit of the field messing up, a little bit more volatility in where guys finish. And it actually kind of helps the guys starting up front, or the guys that lead laps in like stage 1, stage 2. Because if this thing goes full length, usually the biggest dominator kind of ends up being whoever's crushing the race in the long stage 3, stage 2. But yeah, the guys that lead stage 1, which thankfully, again, we have props for here. Those guys are going to most likely score well, especially if they don't get shuffled down and end up finishing poorly, because there'll be a higher percentage of just the lead laps and fast laps of total compared to the rest of the slate. So helps those guys. It hurts the guys who have to come through the field and then are big lap leaders like later on.
Hurts a Kyle Larson.
Like a Truex. Yeah, like guys like Larson and Hamlin are a little bit screwed unless they finish like really well. Yeah, and you'll see there's not a lot of place differential compared to if like there's some actual qualifying going on. Usually we'd see more guys starting in the rear. We have Kyle Busch this week, and that's pretty much it, unless you want to count Larson starting 19th, Gibbs starting 18th as place differential, and historically that has not really scored the best here.
What about Cindric?
Yeah, and Cindric, I mean, I don't know. He's been I'm a notorious Cindric hater, so he'll have to scoot around that. But yeah, I mean, the options down low for place differential look like Eric Jones, not trustworthy. Priest, who's not been trustworthy recently. Yeah. Kyle Busch has been incredibly untrustworthy recently. Cindric is always untrustworthy. There's no for sure place differential plays. Way different slate than yesterday.
We'll see how it goes. Mm-hmm. All right, let's jump into the breakdown here. I'm looking at some of these ownerships. Mm-hmm. And, we're going to have some chalk here, right? We got a lot of chalk in this track without a lot of practice. And, that could be leveraged positively or negatively, depending on how you look at it. So let's jump right into it. Our most expensive guy, Christopher Bell.
Well, you got
the win odds are great.
JGR here.
Yeah, the whole JGR trio is 1, 2, and 3 in South. It does look like DraftKings priced these guys correctly, unfortunately.
I mean, I would say Truex probably over Hamlin, but I mean, DraftKings is known to respect Hamlin because for the most part, he should be up here. His ownership, though, I suspect he'll be on the lower side because the last 2 weeks have been fucking abysmal for him. Sonoma, he blows up instantly. Like lap 3, his engine explodes. That's crazy. Last week, you saw his team completely miss the setup. He ended up getting lapped after 30 laps. Hamlin getting lapped at 30 laps. Unheard of. Just completely missed the setup. So I think a lot of people will be sketched off of Hamlin, and that could be a place to potentially attack. But starting 14th, it is a little awkward because if this race is shortened, he would be one of those guys that absolutely hurts him to not be starting near the front and being able to lead early.
Yeah. Here's the way these play out. I mean, it's a 1 mile, it's a 1 mile track, 10 minutes into the race, 15, 20 minutes into the race, like that leader has already got, 25 lead laps. And you're like, whoa, wait a second. What's going on here? And most of the cars are all in the same spot. Like laps just pass and nothing's happened yet. So yeah, the rain, I don't know how to deal with the rain shortened part of it, to be honest, because I think you almost have to assume that is what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. We have an evenly priced 8.5 over under for the cautions here, which a little bit more than usual, but I mean, it's not too bad. Maybe
the under
being
for the
rain shortened is
it
being, well, I think that's kind of factored in. We saw it end up being a caution breeding caution sort of race yesterday with the Xfinity race there, but for the most part, this is usually more of a green flag race. Most importantly, again, I want to go back to those stage 1 props real quick. So I just converted them into true implied odds. And you've got Elliott and Blaney starting 1st and 2nd, but they are 3rd and 4th in these stage 1 winning props at 13.4% implied probability to win stage 1. Christopher Bell is in 1st with a 16.8% chance to win, and Truex follows him up starting 7th with a 14.9% chance to win stage 1. And then Logano would be the next closest to those guys at 9.6%. Very interesting that the guys starting in the very front aren't leading in that category, but it kind of makes sense considering that Elliott's not really much of a lap leader. And, Blaney, while he's been really good recently, just won at Iowa, probably is not fast enough, most likely, to stop these JGR cars from doing what they're going to do here.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll find out. All right. So, but yeah, the trio of JGR looks really good. Mm-hmm. Of course, Bell and Truex have the best win odds. Truex coming off of just has dominated the shit out of this track historically. And then Bell has never lost here in Xfinity.
Yeah, and Xfinity is 4 for 4 in winning the race. He's disappointed here. He won here in 2022. He did what he was kind of supposed to do. Last year, he got the pole and led 1 lap, and then ended up just having a really terrible race overall. Truex was able to easily get by him and just absolutely crush that race, while Bell, who was the chalk sitting up front, everyone thought, okay, it's time for him to just start doing what he's been doing in Xfinity here in the Cup Series. And yeah, it was really bad for him, but nonetheless, he stays as the favorite going into this one, starting a little bit ahead of Truex. Truex's form at these short flat tracks has not been the best recently. He's not been leading many laps, but you look to Richmond, mostly JGR could not be fucked with there. Truex definitely in better form than Hamlin, at least over the short term, and just what he's done the last 2 years here. The only 2 races we've had here in the next gen package. It's going to be hard to avoid Truex. I think he will be super popular.
Just understand chalk and what chalk does. These guys are rightfully the favorites. Just the DFS angle is chalk is never good. And so.
Yeah, I mean, it's good yesterday, but I mean, these guys, Bell and Truex, they both have cases to be made against them with Truex's form, Bell's inconsistent history here in Cup, and he's not the best chalk guy I found.
Bell,
yeah, he usually comes out of nowhere. He does better at 13% ownership than he does at 40%, but that could be anecdotal.
That's just, you know how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Blaney too, like last week, who the hell wanted to play Blaney? Of course, he comes out and dominates the whole fucking thing. And it's a reminder that anybody can get that lead lap. And if you don't have that person, you're going to lose all your money. So
yeah, usually this would be a track where we kind of know who's going to be running well here because it's so, reliant on track history and whatnot. But you've got to expand your range a bit with the weather, the lack of practice, and all that. These guys that usually would be on the outside of the top 5, top 10 looking in may have more of a chance to factor in here for sure, just with the increased volatility that we're expecting.
Absolutely. And a reminder, you guys are watching the DFS Army Fast 40 NASCAR breakdown here on the DFS Army YouTube channel. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel to get all the good DFS breakdowns and content that we do here on the DFS Army YouTube channel all throughout the week. We're going into summer season. We've got best ball season coming up. We've got NFL back test season coming up in August. So a lot of good stuff here on the channel throughout the week. And of course, prize picks and all that good stuff being broken down daily. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, guys. It is important, and you have notifications on so you are aware when these videos are coming out. And of course, we want you as a member here in DFS Army. So if you want to check out DFS Army, support Taco, promo code Taco. You get 10% off any of our subscriptions. You got the NASCAR only, or VIP covers everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one to do.
You just smash the like button, smash the subscribe button as if you're 2024 Jimmy Johnson smashing the wall.
There it is. Smash that wall.
Yep.
All right. Next trio of similar drivers, all with about the same win odds. Here we've got Blaney, Larson, and Logano. So Blaney and Logano, the Penske twins.
Do you think maybe we should just talk about Elliott and Blaney starting first and second here? Because they're in the premier spot. They're kind of in similar spots because we've seen second place do about as well as first place here. Not a huge pole advantage, but
let's talk about the beginning of the race, right? Mm-hmm. Who's our early dominator? And so Blaney, Chase Elliott, 1 and 2. Do you think, number one, that one of those guys just grabs that lead and then holds it for the first stage? Or obviously the stage odds don't necessarily show that.
There should be a competition caution, I think, lap 30. So that actually may hurt these guys' upside.
At 30 laps?
Mm-hmm. Because of the rain.
Caution comes in?
Yeah, I can't remember if it's 25 or 30. I think it's 30, but either way, that will hurt Elliott and Blaney's upside here. I would prefer Blaney over Elliott, but he is really priced up after a win last week. Elliott has not been a guy that's led laps. He can't even remember the last time he's gotten a pole at an oval. He's just not really that guy. So we don't see him on the pole very often. But it is kind of the spot to be. Having that preferred pit stall is really nice, and it's going to help him throughout the race stay up front, which is what he's done better than anyone else this year. Is the best average finish of all drivers, and that's very strange when you think Elliott. He hasn't really been that much of a factor this season, but if you look at just all of his finishes, he's avoided wrecks. He's finished top 7 pretty damn consistently. If you can pair up a good finish with a decent chunk of lead laps off the rip at 92, it's pretty comparable to a Ryan Blaney. So you're probably not going to want to play these guys together at all. It's going to be one or the other. Now, if Blaney takes the lead early, I think he has a lot more upside to lead more laps. But I think Elliott is going to win the restart more often than Blaney. So it is kind of a give and take there. A lot easier to make lineups that have Bell and Truex in it if you play Elliott over Blaney, because again, the price really comes into play. As we go through the field, you will see that there are very few punt plays this week that are all that viable because of the lack of practice and the place differential plays being A, not very good, B, just the guys in the back are the guys that deserve to be in the back. So a lot harder to get those punt plays this week than it usually would be.
Got to make a choice. Elliott or Blaney or neither.
But surprisingly, Elliott's odds have stayed up there as I think he's the third favorite still, which is a little bit shocking. Usually we see these guys that get the pole or through predetermined means don't really deserve it. I usually see them drift the other way overnight, but he's stayed pretty strong. So I don't know if it's just like his average finish or what, but yeah, he's been holding on pretty tight.
Chases look good in short flat tracks. I mean, third place last week, and
he's runner up here in 2023.
I'm trying to go back to that one. He was, there it is. So in 2022, right? Not 23, 2022. Runner up. So, Chase knows how to drive this track. Why not? I like the price point for Chase on the pole at 9,200 at the very least. But I do think that, have you ever thought, just side note, that pole sitter tends to do better when it's not like an algorithmically chosen one, but rather they won the pole?
Especially here because it's off of merit and speed. And I will say that ownership projection of his will get lowered with the announcement of a competition caution. That's usually the trend that we see. So we'll see Blaney's and especially Elliott's ownership dip a bit once everyone knows, okay, there's early competition caution. And I think that'll also result in Bell rising a bit too, because I think Bell is looking like the clear favorite to dominate stage one.
Yeah, and Bell starting fourth, man, it is dangerous. Dangerous to play all these other guys, but who knows? What it does look like, though, I think the shortened race might benefit. The possible range shortened race might benefit some of these. Actually, I actually think it might weirdly benefit the play stiff guys. Not the super expensive ones. Yeah, the cheap one, the cheap play stiff guys. Because
Hamlin and Larson look to be the primary guys of the range shortened race hurts, unless they end up second or something.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the other studs that we didn't talk about just now. Larson, Logano, and Byron. Right. So we got this trio. They're all. This is kind of. That's about the end of the high odds to win. I guess you throw Keselowski in there as well in the sort of reasonable win odds drivers. You got Larson starting 19th, which gives us some really nice potential place stiff upside, but his price makes that a little bit prohibitive. What do you think of Larson here?
Yeah, 10K plus, I'm going to need you to lead laps and get fast laps. Now, that is something that Larson has been really, really, really good at all the other short flat tracks this season, and especially last season. Problem is, you can see from the odds, and you can even see that Chevy is lower than the manufacturer odds than Ford. Hendrick, just despite them having the pole sitter, people are not very bullish on Hendrick this week. Larson, this has not been a track where I think he's averaging like 1 or 2 lead lap per race here. Historically, it's just not been one of his better tracks, even though he's gotten decent finishes. I think he's finished third here a lot. So I think Larson will. I think that ownership's going to go down with the rumors of a rain shortened race, because he looks like the person that would hurt the most. And then we also have Logano here, who's kind of just in his usual role of being a sleeper guy. Penske actually looks pretty good at this track. Their odds are right there with Hendrick, as we're usually Hendrick would be significantly better than Penske, but Penske's been strong lately. Blaney's been fast. Logano has been really good. His finishes recently at these flat tracks, and this year and last year, he's been a top 5 machine. Scoring wise, probably benefits him more on FanDuel unless he does get the lead, because he does not put up fast laps really. But kind of the same old for Logano. And then Byron here just kind of looks like a fade across the board. Sure, he gets good finishes, but this is his worst track. I don't think he's ever finished top 10 here. Just not a place he likes.
Willie B. I'd include Keselowski, by the way, in this group also.
Oh yeah, he's a really solid play this week.
Yeah, it's just the last of the sort of could possibly dominate and win guys that might come out of nowhere. 23% ownership projection. Starting 9.
In this is very much like a long-term track history sort of track. With Harvick gone, you've got to figure that Keselowski probably has the best track history of anyone here that's not a JGR Toyota.
It's your track history tab right there, guys. And he's been really good here.
Mm-hmm.
Won it
And
a
he's
few
been
times.
really good at this track type too, just generally.
Yeah, he's been really, really good here. So fine. Now, so Keselowski in play, starting ninth. He's gonna. I'm shocked at how high you have the ownership on him. We'll see if that holds.
It's
Because
no
he seems
secret
to be
that
nondescript to
Keselowski is
me.
quite good at this track, and also just RFK has been finishing like in the top 5, held top 2 a lot recently. We've seen Keselowski's ownership be pretty solid, and with Buescher being kind of a non-factor this week, that should definitely all funnel on to Brad K here.
There it is.
And also the plays underneath him are not that great.
Well, let's talk about a couple of them. So you see a massive drop in win odds here and for the price. So I mean, understand what's going on. I'm dropping from 7-1 win odds, and then $400 down. I'm at 30-1.
Yep.
It's not as good.
Same odds as Josh Berry, oddly enough.
Yeah, wait, we got to go down. He's hiding somewhere, but like, yeah, that's right. If I needed 29-1, I can get it for 8K, I guess. But here we're paying 8,800, 8,700, 8,500, 8,300. So Reddick, Gibbs, Chastain, Buescher, and I'll throw Bowman in there. Don't like Bowman starting 5th at all. But Reddick is pretty good generally. Getting 14% ownership, starting 12, kind of nondescript here.
This is usually just not his track type. He's been managing like some just barely top 10 finishes, I guess, with really low fast lap numbers, not been leading laps. Snuck in a decent finish here last year, but this is a play you'd pretty much want to avoid. But the only reason you're going to him a bit more than you would be just the added volatility from the rain and whatnot. But doesn't rate out all that well outside of him driving a Toyota. I think Gibbs is kind of the one that projects well because of the place differential there, but also stands to not benefit from a rain shortened race, and also is a really wildly inconsistent driver, especially compared to his teammates. But again, 8,700 for a JGR. I feel like I mention that every week. He's going to come in line with his teammates eventually. But yeah, just nowhere near as consistent as his teammates.
So could we at least give Gibbs the respect of JGR being that team today? So YOLO it, you know what I mean? Yeah, no, you can't.
When JGR was super fast across the board at Phoenix, he was right there. Bristol earlier this year, when JGR was a million times better than everyone else, he was running right there with Truex and Hamlin. So he has that potential in him. Just again, super duper risky, like GPP only play, even with the place differential upside.
Don't know when it's coming. The big winner at Phoenix here, Ross Chastain, came out of nowhere.
Yep.
What about Chastain?
I have him pegged as a single entry or just alternate dominator, because most of the time we run this race, he is going to be extremely pedestrian, not factor in whatsoever. But what we have seen from him is that if he does manage to get the lead through pit strategy, and he's one of those guys that is absolutely willing to take those sorts of risks, he is up there with Keselowski as like one of the absolute best blockers, and he could end up leading a ton of laps, even at a track he's not really supposed to be doing all that well at. So I have him circled as a bad play, but he has a very, very specific use case where it's a complete shot in the dark. But I do think his ceiling is a lot better than guys like Reddick, guys like Gibbs, especially guys like Buescher and Bowman in this range. I think he's got by far the best ceiling, but the floor is pretty bad.
You know how you keep shitting on Buescher?
Yeah.
Well, Buscher's going to be in the nuts.
Yeah, maybe his teammate will finally teach him how to drive here.
It's going to happen. This dude was good at all the other short flat tracks.
Yeah, and I mentioned Richmond being the most similar to this one. He won at Richmond last year.
I'm not shitting on Buescher. No,
I've been waiting for Buescher to do something here. It's just he has not really shown it here. He had his best ever finish last year, 15th, which is where he's starting.
That's what we said about Buescher at Richmond.
Yeah,
and then he won that shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yep, he's capable of it.
Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
Mm-hmm.
Finance,
but with very limited practice information out there. We got to kind of work with what we're working with here.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to play a little GPP Busher at 12% ownership. Why not?
Yeah.
Bowman, though, I can't really get on that one. It's just not my guy when he starts fifth.
Bowman is the 13th favorite to win stage 1, and he's starting fifth.
Yeah,
that's like everything you need to know.
You're dropping in odds horrifically here as well. I don't like it, right? Could he get there? Could he hang around? Could he be in third place at the end? Start at fifth. You know, the rain comes. You're like, how the hell's Bowman in third place?
You need to pull a Busher.
Why aren't I making any money? What happened to all my money? Why do I have zero? That's why. Oh, I didn't play Bowman. Okay. But more likely than not, Bowman is going to not do well. Josh Berry, though, 8K. Josh Berry is now in the elite tier of drivers. That's it. He's moved up.
At short tracks. Only at short tracks. But he absolutely has top 10 upside here. His crew chief with Kevin Harvick, pretty fucking good at this track. Incredibly good. And yeah, he's been really good here in like Xfinity. Just a short track specialist. Kind of like what I always would say about Priest, except he actually has like the equipment going to him. Like it's clear that Priest is just getting the scraps at Stewart-Haas now, and the focus is primarily on Berry, Gragson, maybe less so Briscoe, now that Bell accidentally let it slip that Briscoe is going to replace Truex at JGR next year. So
Briscoe's going to be just fine, man. Every time you don't play Briscoe, you get burned.
Yeah, the short flat tracks, Stewart-Haas Racing has proven since the switch to the next gen car that they're not good at many track types, but they're absolutely good at this track type. And
I like this whole
Barry's odds are right in line with guys like Reddick. He has better odds than Gibbs.
Everybody with the 7 in front of their name is a good play. How about that? Quote me on it. I said it after the track. Be like, you know what?
7 in front of their name, like they start 7th?
No.
Or they're in the 7K range?
In the 7K range. And I'll include Barry, even though he's got an 8.
Can we do 7-2 and up?
No, I'm going all the way to 7.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you have all the way down. I'll let you have them at 131.
I'm even Austin. Wait, which one is the Austin?
No, I'll keep his ownership nice and low for you.
Maybe it's Austin Dillon that I'm thinking of. I feel like one of these guys is not bad at short flat. Yeah, wait a minute.
No, he had the at Gateway.
Just I full faded him.
Super crazy.
At Gateway, I full faded him.
But there was like at least a ton of evidence that they were going to be fast, like practice speeds, and the history there had been like all Penske. There's no real evidence that we're going to see anything from Cindric here, because if you look at just the actual like short flat tracks and get rid of Gateway, like he's horrific.
But I'm just still salty about that full fade on that one time. Because I was like, man, I nailed the slate. Oh shit, I have 0 Austin Cindric. Story of
I'm gonna keep being a Cindric hater unless we're at a road course or super speedway, because I think it's just the right way to go about it. But I do have to asterisk my my displeasure for him. But go back up to Kyle Busch, because he's oddly like super important in this slate. Yeah,
Kyle Busch,
he's like the most important play, arguably.
Is he? All right. So Kyle Busch, 7,700. His name is Kyle Busch. We know he's, pretty decent at driving a car.
That's the kind of place differential that would actually stand to benefit a lot in a rain-shortened race. Because he's like a top 15 car. Don't kid yourself. Like he's been like a top 15 car. He's just had horrific finishes recently because his luck has been horrific, and he has been a bit of a mental case. You're still going to have to play him in cash. There's what other place differential is there? Because Cindric's not much safer. Priest, not much safer. Jones, not much safer. Like there's no place differential here. He's the only guy starting in the 30s that I could see not being lap traffic very quickly. So
the algorithm.
With his price just being shoved down into the 7K range, kind of where he's deserved a bit, and these poor finishes just shoving him down the algorithm, he's ended up being a play that you've got to honestly consider. He has top 15, even top 10 upside.
He did finish
as crazy
12th.
As it sounds.
He finished in 12th place in 2022, crashed out in 2023. So Kyle Busch, 7,700. Remember, I don't like buying Kyle Busch as much as no one does, but he's 7,700. He's starting 30th, and understand that, and Grim is like, this does seem like that. That's because you play a lot of them, and when they crash, you remember it really well. But
he's
starting 30th for 77. If Ricky, like, if any shitty named driver like was starting 30th for 7,700, but this is a decent driver, like, you're playing that.
I mean, last week we had Dylan and Stenhouse in the back row, and I think they were both optimal. Like, Stenhouse went from the very rear to the top 5, and he was fairly chalky, so like it does happen. We just remember it a lot more when it hurts.
No, we just remember the bad ones. That is not a true statement. It's just something that is how your psychology works. We in psychology, they teach you that your mind, like the pain of winning $100 bet and losing $100 bet, for example, the bad of losing is much greater in velocity than the positive of winning.
And just even mentioning that out loud makes you mentally stronger. So just something to consider. And if you're scared to death of Kyle Busch, which I can't really blame you at this point, there's a perfectly fine alternative play in Bubba Wallace.
Ain't no burger better.
So he's been starting a little bit too high recently to really matter. He's been a pretty safe fade at most of these short and flat tracks and tends to run around 15th, 10th through 15th. Last year was more of a 10th, this year more of a 15th, but I mean, he had like the standout run at Martinsville, and he's running a little bit better than where he's finished here. Again, Toyota heavily favored on this slate. Bubba really cheap now. He's gotten down to the 7K range, and you'll see just a massive cliff odds-wise after him.
Look at the difference.
He's kind of in a good spot, to, especially if the race is rain short and he goes from like 17th to 12th, because he does tend to move forwards early on in a race. I could see him working out pretty well.
I like Bubba in a rain shortened track because you're right. He usually fucks up towards the end and burns you. But like that first half of the race, like, damn, why didn't I play Bubba? Well, we don't have a second half. So that could be really interesting. So again, starting 17th. And
he's won a rain short race already.
Look at the odds cliff.
Yeah.
It's massive. Like, it costs you 200 to go from Gregson, who I like also, but starting 21st, like it's just a couple of place diff less, but you get 36 to 1 versus 100 to 1. You get a 2.3 to 1 shot. So I don't know, 30% chance that Bubba finishes in to the top 10 according to the implied probability here. Oh, you know what? You put it correctly over here. Forgot to look there. A 33% implied probability of a top 10 versus a 17, and that's double the odds.
Yeah, 17 to 10 is gonna do pretty well.
It's a big difference. So yeah, and 17 to 10 is the nuts for a 7,500 driver all day. You want that finishing position though is important. That's why the turds and the waybacks don't do as well, because you want somebody in the top 10 finishing. You're going to get that 28 point bonus or whatever that is.
Yeah, and with it not being a 400, 500 lap short race, we're not seeing the guys in the we're not seeing the top guys be like 11.5 to up to like 12 as we've seen at those kind of races. So especially with the very bottom of this field being really shitty, you're going to kind of attack the mid-range here this week a lot more than you would a normal short track week, where usually it's more
safer.
Duds and duds.
Safer. There's a bunch of drivers in this zone that I want to mention.
Yeah, Bubba's fairly safe. He's finished most of his races at all track types. He's actually been a decent finisher, sort of like Chase Elliott, where low-key is just finishing.
Next gen Bubba in this car, 3rd and 8th place in this specific track. And then if you look at the recent short tracks, looks pretty freaking good. 10th, 11th, 12th, 8th, 9th. Dude's good, man. If he does what he normally does, he is going to be in the nuts lineup. He will be one of those plays that is in the winning lineup. So as much as I normally don't love to play Bubba, he's really interesting here. Back to Stewart Haas, Gragson and Briscoe. Is Gragson, I know Briscoe is uniquely pretty good at the short flat. Like this is like one of the things that he's decent at. Anything about Gragson that stands out, or he's been fine? He's
been better at the intermediate tracks is what we've seen this year, but 12th at Richmond and Phoenix is pretty important. Those are the most similar tracks. That's not bad. Starting 21st, ending in 12th is decent. You can ignore all those finishes from the year before when he was in shitty Ty Dillon equipment, so it doesn't matter. The lack of track history isn't in Cup, at least, is a little bit of a concern. It's the same kind of concern that we have with Barry, who's not raced here in Cup yet. And Briscoe may have a bit of an edge here with just more reps going on, but Briscoe is on record saying that this is one of his 3 worst tracks. But
really,
yeah, but he's been so good at this track type compared to others. It's not really mattered. 10th here last year, 15th in 2022. I'm not totally worried about sound clips like that. So like when Busher says it, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like he obviously does a lot worse here than other tracks. LaJoy, I think, is the same way. But Gregson and Briscoe, they're a bit interchangeable. I would probably prefer Briscoe over Gregson. He's got some more place differential to work with, ever so slightly cheaper, and
slightly better, just minimally better odds for Briscoe.
Yeah, and I'm more inclined to believe the odds over the practice times this week. You'd think that that's a big difference, but I wouldn't get baited into looking at that too much because Briscoe could have been way faster. He could have just been in traffic. So again, not much point in looking too heavily into that shit. I think they've got a pretty similar floor, but I think Briscoe's upside is just a bit higher.
Yeah, I'll get exposure to both of those guys. And now Austin Cindric, you're not a big fan, but he is starting 29th. The odds are not horrific.
I think that's starting so far back that it becomes a real concern for so the lead lap prop is set at 18.5. Guys starting like 25th and worse are at risk to go down a lap somewhat early. That's where Kyle Busch, I don't think, is going to get lapped as nearly as easily as like a Cindric. Like a Cindric or a Priest here in these spots are very dangerous to me because I could see them getting lapped. But yeah, Brady was showing a lot of love to Cindric, so I don't know. I'm more inclined to kind of treat just Gateway as its own unique sort of situation because other than that, he's been pretty consistently putrid. And we saw that return to normalcy last week at Iowa, where once again, he kind of went back to the same old Cindric that we knew.
Maybe
all the other flat tracks that aren't Gateway.
Maybe Cindric only becomes good when he randomly just qualifies in the top 3. I don't know. That was crazy in Gateway. I was so comfortable fading.
Yeah, we showed like practice speed and everything. We don't really have that luxury this week, but I mean, as a Cindric hater, I do see there, he does have like, I guess, play stiff upside, but this is just not really a track for play stiff. I'm way happier using some of these guys that seem to be a little faster and qualified like top 15, even though usually that would, be a super risky move.
Yeah, no, we're going to get
I think starting in the back is the risky thing now because just the risk of getting lapped and getting stuck a lap or 2 down early.
We're going to get to one of my favorites that is perfectly in that weirdness zone in a minute here. But I think there's some other interesting drivers. Just this zone, we're going to have a few of these 6K guys. You just can't make a lineup without using some of this. So Daniel Suarez, I don't know what to do with him starting 11th.
Yeah, he's at actual speed. Like he was quite fast at Iowa. He was like somewhat impressively fast and has had a top 10 here back in 22. Granted, Trackhouse was in much better form then, but if he wasn't starting 11th, it would be a play you could consider more, but that is starting so high. It's really hard to even think about how he would make an optimal lineup just starting there. He would have to like finish top 7 or so, and I just don't even think that's really possible from him unless like the finish ends up being just like a roulette wheel with like pit strategy and all that shit. And then
it's gonna be
even then there's place differential stands to benefit way more than someone starting 11th. So I just really don't see how Suarez would do that. Although he has been notably pretty fast, like surprisingly fast for a team like his. Just became an American citizen too, like 2 days ago. So shout out one of our newer Americans, Suarez, did the legal way.
Oh.
And then McDowell here in this range seems like he's starting just far enough up to where I'm not too concerned about him going a lap down. But I've kind of noticed with the front row cars, it's been one of them has been fast each week while the other has been quite a bit slower. We saw McDowell kind of fast in the few practice laps that we saw. But at this track type, Gilliland has been highly impressive, and McDowell has 4 straight finishes outside the top 20. seems like all the attention is going to Gilliland at this short flat track type. So
yeah.
I mean,
But
McDowell not coming back to front row next year, so I don't know if there's much to even bother with learning with him. But
not a great
Gilliland
track
actually
history here
does stick out.
Not a great track history for McDowell. Nothing super standout outside of a couple of ninth place finishes, in other Richmond. I mean, there's the good finish in Richmond.
Yep.
I don't think you could write him off.
Season.
I wouldn't write. I'm not going to fully write off McDowell. I'm going to tell you right now, 17% ownership sounds okay. It sounds all right.
You got to lower your standards in this range because there are very few plays that even feel good. Like the best play by far is starting like kind of high.
Has Killer Priest just been terrible this year across the board? Like, what is going on with Killer Priest?
So Stewart Haas Racing is disbanding. It turns out they're actually returning next year without Stewart. They're just going to be Haas, and they're going to have one car. And the rumor is it's going to be Cole Custer. So since that news has come out, Priest has been to a lot of tracks he's like good at, but he's been like consistently really slow and just has had garbage speed. And this looks to be another one of those weeks where, despite it being a perfect track type for him, like any other week we'd be all over Priest here. It's hard to write off the fact that he has been horrendously slow recently, and it looks like he's getting no support. It seems like he's doomed to go back to the Xfinity Series, unless I'm missing something with him.
The finishes have just not been the greatest. He did have a nice run at Richmond, but 14th place was not horrible.
Last year at this track type, he was up there with his teammates doing great. This year, it's been, I mean,
it's not as good, but he does have that ninth place. Again, he does have Martinsville.
It's like finishes usually are hella skewed just by pit strategy, and no one can pass there. So at the actual tracks where people can pass, like he's been horrific. He's been like towards the bottom of the practice speeds and everything. He was 400 to 1, I think, last week. 200 to 1's an improvement here, but I don't know. Much more inclined to use his teammates here.
I mean,
Gilliland is right there, and he looks to have some actual speed. Very interesting play, despite
Gilliland starting 16th is less good.
Yeah, but I think that actually works out here because he's cheap. He's starting where I think he could move forward. He's finished 16th or better at the last 3 flat tracks he's been to. And that team has had some extra speed this season with the Penske Alliance, and this is a track where Penske has done really well historically. I see it being a decent spot for him, despite him starting 16th. And like I said, most of the good plays in this range are actually starting in a position where they're not really under threat of getting lapped anytime soon.
Well, now we come to my favorite
lap. Yeah.
So I'm going to give my favorite guy in this range, Taco.
Mm-hmm.
There's some hoes.
Maybe everyone's
in this house.
He's starting 20th for the 4th time in 5 weeks. You know how crazy that is?
It really
is. I could see polls or something to it. Starting the exact same spot, 20th. And then the 2 weeks before that, he started 21st and 22nd. Like, bro has been consistent. Even the algorithm thinks he should start 20th.
Is he just good at driving? Because, Taco,
he's been good, too.
The Spire car was never a car to be concerned with. And yet now we got Carson Hocevar, and he's just been good this year.
I think it's very clear that he just sucked the lifeblood out of Corey LaJoie, because Corey LaJoie is an absolute shell of himself now. Like he is in like the worst form of any driver, period. But Hocevar, I mean, he was good in his spot starts last year for Legacy when he replaced Ty Dillon in that shitty car. That was terrible. Or no, he replaced Gregson after he got mini canceled there for a bit. And he was doing the same thing, running top 20 consistently. Like he is definitely getting tryouts all over the place. So he's getting the primary car at Spire for sure now. LaJoie is getting fucked. He's also been horribly unlucky, but a couple of those terrible finishes from LaJoie have been him just having like worse speed than even Gralla and just flying to the back and being horrible. But yeah, it's clear that Hocevar is the primary Spire car, and it's not close.
Hocevar 100 to 1, his teammate Colo 400 to 1.
randomly
then
mad
my
fast
boy
in
Zane
practice.
Smith, who I like better.
Yeah.
I love Zane Smith. I don't get the 500 to 1, but whatever. Disrespect. But yeah, Hocevar, interesting play. You know, if you want to believe the practice was fast,
Yeah,
good enough for me.
and the form, yeah, it's just been consistent, and it
Form's
goes
been
into
good. Yeah, going to be a popular underdog play. Then we have our boy Austin Dillon starting 22nd. Weird starting spot. 150 to 1.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the practice times because he's been surprisingly pretty decent over the last 2 races. I think he like almost ended up optimal last week, even though like I think it was just him and Stenhouse coming from the very rear. Stenhouse actually looked to be a little fast as Dylan just kind of avoided all the wrecks for once in his life and just kind of did his thing.
Stenhouse was known to be good at Iowa. Like he was definitely a guy who was popping on the just the projection and everything last week. So was Dylan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was not comfortable with the amount of Dylan I had. Ended up working out. Starting 22nd, unless he does what he did at Gateway again, or I guess what he did here last year with a surprise 9th place finish. Again, it's gonna be hard to ever use him. Could he end up with another top 10 just due to like some bullshit pit strategy, whatever, what have you? Sure.
Dude, shit on him all you want. This guy has, you know, a 12th, a 9th, a 9th here in New Hampshire.
And that's more what we're used to, like 12th to 15th place Austin Dillon. He was that guy for years and years. It's just this last year or two, it's been really rough sledding at RCR, especially with him. That's why he's not a 7K guy anymore. He's a lower 6K guy.
It's weird that I'm slightly more interested in Haley, but Haley has worse win odds across the board than Dillon. So
the only good thing Dillon has going for him, I think, is that he's been basically unowned in like every contest this year. And last week he was again like super duper low owned.
I want to teach
being kind of an important piece, but
Taco, I want to teach a DFS theory course on why Austin Dillon is a better play than Justin Haley specifically in this race. Just like half the ownership, better win odds, similar play stiff upside.
Yeah, similar projection. You're really paying up for you go to the finishes tab real quick. Just overall, if you look at Haley in Rick Ware equipment, although it's kind of this is not the Rick Ware equipment obviously we've been used to. Like there seems to be a clear reason that he has switched from the spot or from my colleague over to Rick Ware. I mean, it looked like it was a big step down for no reason, but we've kind of seen the fruits of the labor here at Darlington, Gateway, Iowa, some incredibly good finishes. And this is where I point out the biggest thing I noticed from last week on stage 1. Justin Haley drove up to the top 10 legitimately. It's not this was not a bullshit finish. Him finishing 13th at Iowa wasn't even like an accurate representation of his speed because he was even faster than that. He legitimately was running top 10 for a humongous portion of the race. He had real speed. And that was shocking to see.
Same tire package?
Equipment.
Same package?
So the tire package last week was the same as the North Wilkesboro one. He was pretty good there as well. This is different this week. We're looking kind of more towards Richmond and Phoenix, which he did not do good at. So he could be a negative. He could be a negative regression candidate, I suppose. But I do think his ownership is going to be boosted because of just his overall finishes recently have been remarkable. And if we're expecting similar results to what we've seen from him at Colleague, he's finished top 20 here at both of his next gen races. I mean, just barely top 20, but it seems like a reasonable expectation for what to expect from him here.
Is Ricky Stenhouse good at short flat?
No, he's usually better at intermediate tracks. Last week he was just he kind of just ended up towards the front at the end due to getting very lucky with some pit strategy. But yeah, he's kind of someone that just steals some fast laps, occasionally shows a little bit of speed, usually at those intermediate tracks. Usually this track type, not his best, but he's okay-ish here. He's a mid-pack kind of guy.
Well, starting
13th.
Yeah,
it's very, very, very hard to find a way to slot him in. It's like, why would we not just play like Gilliland if you're going to play someone starting more towards the front?
That's as unexciting of a starting spot as you're ever going to see for someone like Ricky Stenhouse. Going to have to take a pass on that one. Eric Jones, E. Rockefeller, E. Moneybags.
He's been since returning from injury, right? He had an all right finish at Darlington, which is to be expected. That's by far his best track. Since then, he's been towards the bottom of the entire field in practice times. He's been 400 to 1, 500 to 1. He's looked pretty awful. And yeah, he's starting in the rear as a result. I guess he would be probably my favorite cheap place differential play, but that comes at a humongous risk here of he's certainly getting lapped.
You feel confident that he will get lapped here. He's had finishes.
If only 18 guys are going to finish on the lead lap, per the prop at least, like there ain't no way Jones is.
Jones the last finished 11th here last year.
Yeah, the last several weeks we've been going to tracks that Jones is not good at. We haven't been to a track that Jones is good at since Darlington, right? And this is actually a track he is like all right at. He's finished top 20 in 6 of the last 7 races. Which kind of goes back to his JGR days.
And you also said Richmond
are to be expected, kind of there.
You said
Richmond, a fairly similar track.
That's a 14th place just a couple of weeks ago.
No, that was many, many, many weeks ago. That was towards the beginning of the season, but still, again, that's the number 1 correlating track. So that is a very good positive point for him. And then the practice times we don't know. Obviously, only ran 3. So we don't know if he's the worst car, but we've known the last several weeks he's been the worst car. And with him and Nemechek, he's actually got significantly better odds than Nemechek this week.
Both Toyotas got the right model, got the right vehicle.
Yeah, well, not the right team for Toyota, sadly. But I see Jones as being more alive than in previous weeks. He just needs to get very, very lucky with some lucky dogs.
This whole zone is going to be an interesting zone. So on paper, Eric Jones, number 1, is the only guy who's really getting any ownership down here. But to me, it's correct because he's 250 to 1 for 5,900 starting 32nd. And the
problem is that too much for someone that's going laps down.
Yeah, perhaps. But he's got an 8%.
You want to avoid this range as much as possible. Yeah.
If I had to pay down for me, Jones is the top guy. Give me 8% shot at a top 10 finish. I'll accept it. A lot better than the 3% I can get from these other guys. Yeah. And then I think after Eric Jones, is this a full fade zone? The only guy that really stands out to me as even playable is Zane Smith here.
That's kind of what I noticed. Surprisingly, Kaz Grella almost rates out okay-ish. Just because he's sort of looking like equally shitty to most of the guys in this range, and he's just the cheapest. I don't really know what to say this range. I would like to avoid as much as possible. I think Brady also has some love for Zane Smith.
Zane Smith.
I would like to see Zane have finished decently at any of these tracks that aren't like Gateway. So I mean, that's obviously really bad. The only thing he has really going for him is, I guess, his practice times, but. If we take a step back and just think about the drivers, and who we'd want here. I mean, it's hard to know with Spire. Those are obviously not the primary Spire cars here. LaJoy it's been very weird with him. Smith, I don't know. I could see him doing decently, starting 34th. Like it would have to be like a bunch of carnage, but yeah, for the most part, you want to avoid this range like as much as possible.
These guys are gonna. I think it's worse for them. The range shortened might not. I think it actually almost makes it worse.
No, they're definitely getting all of these guys are getting lapped.
Yeah, they just get lapped, and sometimes when when this kind of track goes the full amount of time, if you have 5 or 6 actual accidents, you get lucky dogs happening, you get guys catching up back to the lead lap, all that craziness happens. But if it's going to be range shortened, I think it really does hurt this kind of driver. these guys at the
I
very
think
backs.
it kind of makes them almost lottery tickets, though, because there is that small chance that they could pull a Chris Buescher and just do some fuck shit on the pit strategy and just steal a good finish and starting deep. It would work out for them. But I see them getting lapped early enough on, like, by the time we're done with like stage 2 and able to finish the race, I don't see how they could even like be on the lead lap without like taking waiver rounds. It's gonna be hard for one of those guys to steal a finish. It's probably going to be more of your guys starting like the 20s that are able to steal a finish.
Yeah, so I'm just going to paint a scenario of what I've seen in the past with a rain short. And it's the pit strategy thing that you just talked about. You ever watching the race and all of a sudden it's like, hey, wait a second. How the hell is, and it's like some turd from the back, like, how the hell is, Carson Hocevar in first place? Oh,
Stenhouse last week.
Yeah, where he didn't pit and everybody else did pit. And all of a sudden they're like,
and they get a caution, then it lucks out. In this case,
then all
they
of a
could
sudden
get
it's
a
like
rain call.
rain clouds. Yeah. And then they're like, nope, red flag, pause. And then all of a sudden you're paused. And one of these turds who's driving on old ass tires is moving backwards, but he went from first place to 8th, just hanging around.
Yeah.
Ends up, Casgrala in the nuts. If the track, if we went on another 10 laps, he would have fallen all the way back. Doesn't matter. So they can play games. Weird shit can happen in this kind of a track, I would say. And so in this style of race with the potential for the early rain out finish.
Yeah, that's why if you're playing like 150 lineups, you may not want to full fade that range at the bottom just because some bullshit could happen.
Get it weird.
And if any of those guys end up getting a stolen top 10, like we've seen in the past, that could determine the whole slate, which kind of makes me not enjoy these kind of slates unless they have the rain delay slate, which we haven't had in like 3 years, but I always beg for it. It's like the only good thing I can see happening.
Well, if it delays and we actually know, we'll see. We'll see if that happens. We didn't talk too much about FanDuel either, but FanDuel usually locks earlier and gives you a little.
FanDuel actually has like fairly consistent pricing with DraftKings this week. I think the only plays I mentioned that I might like a little bit more there is Joey Logano, Reddick Chastain. Gibbs is less good over there. Keselowski is and Elliott. Elliott's actually really cheap over there, and he kind of stands to benefit from the scoring there a lot more than DraftKings. So those are main difference, guys. And
we have two
the punts though; they definitely don't matter at all there.
We have two interesting questions, and I want to address them, and I want to get your takes on these two questions as well, and they're actually related. Mr. 5 Cents is asking about single entry, right? Who should I play in single entry, maybe? And Dooley's asking, what's a great approach for 20 max? Strategically, I'm going to tell you kind of what I think, and then Taco, I want your thoughts on it, right? So number one, I'm going to start with the 20 max, and I'm going to say the same thing I always say, which is if you're going to play 20 max and you're in a giant contest, like a $4 or $1 contest, 30,000 entries in it, you're not winning if you don't take a strong stand on a couple of spots. You're just not. You're not going to win it.
Very, very small chance.
Yeah, it's for me, it's don't bother, right? So what does that mean by taking a shot? Effectively, if you're running 20 max, to me, at least 2 of your drivers are 100% all in. You just put them in every lineup, and then I'll do another couple of them at 50% ownership, meaning I'm taking a strong stand on probably 3 to 4 of the 6 spots in my lineup. Taking a very strong stand. I'm full fading some spots that I just decided to full fade. Now, to get like next level understanding of that, who are you full fading? Should it be the 44% owned Bell, and should it be or 45% owned Truex? And the answer is it probably should be.
A little bit of the answer is it depends on how okay you are with winning $0. That will determine a lot of it. My answer to this has always been the same. And unfortunately, that answer is I don't 20 max, so I have no idea. I've never 20 maxed in my life. I'm 100
at all.
Like 100 plus. Yeah, so I got you on the 100 pluses. I'm just being real with you. At that point, that amount of money being played, I'd rather just like make 3 or 4 really good cash / triple up kind of lineups and just ladder them. That's just me. And for the single entry plays, I kind of mentioned earlier that I like if you're doing the strategy, which I think you should, where you target the guys who will be very, very unpopular in hand builds because single entries are full of hand builds. You want to get to those low-owned alternate plays. Usually it's like Logano, and Logano could be a very strong play here. But I had Ross Chastain in mind, with the rationale being he really has no business leading, and no one's going to play him. But if he does find the lead, he has tons of upside because he can like block forever. We've already seen it at one race this year. He's kind of got like just the old Kurt Busch kind of angle where, or even like Boyer from back in the day, where just no one plays him. But if he ends up grabbing the lead, he can just kind of sit there forever at like sub 8% ownership, potentially down to like 4% ownership. I could see. Well, Chastain is not going to be like 4% ownership, obviously, but like having like 8%, he could be down like 6% in some single entries. I could see it's just got to be the most ceiling for the fewest amount of ownership. And for me, Chastain kind of sticks out as that guy who could steal a whole lot of leverage. And then
you know who I was going to say,
maybe,
but I mean, I'm with you on it.
I'm going to guess that you're going to say like a Chris Buescher, maybe.
Well, definitely Chris Busch or something like that. But I mean, even like
it's like ceiling though.
Yeah, but even like a Willie Byron, right? We know he's a good driver. He's going to be super low owned. You know, the odds are not terrible. Something like that. Like
Byron and Buescher just kind of strike me as like they have horrible track history here. This is like a top 3 track history track, so I kind of just avoid them, and it's always really worked out in the past. And since we've done so well at this track type, I really don't like changing the process up much. So definitely leaning on that track history here, and I need to give a winner out.
What about for single entry? Just another thought would be because like last week it was really easy. Like I faded Larson in single entry and it worked, right? Like he was the chalk. He was on the pole, I think, and I was like,
probably fade one of Beller Truex.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, and just you fade one of those two guys, you play the other one, and then you just kind of hope that you guess right.
Maybe what the most popular lineup construction is, and
what if it's play Hamlin instead? Hamlin's good, JGR team, right? All of a sudden he comes out of nowhere. So what if it's
you would need like an early leader, maybe like a Blaney Hamlin, and Chastain. It's like your top 3. You could afford a ton with that. Maybe that's even too much leverage because we're kind of stacking leveraged plays, but I guess guys like Byron, guys like Hammond could be alternatives to like a Logano or Chastain type play. You really just need like 1 or 2 of those guys to separate yourself, and then just avoid like one of the big chalks.
Dude, when you're back testing and you use randomization, it's really hard to. I tend to think that I have to use a little bit of randomization in NFL back testing just to make things move along quick. But in general, if you're using randomization and back testing, it's really actually difficult to get the best of reads because each time you click that button, it's going to be a little different. So,
and randomization, I would honestly bump up a little more just with like usually here I'd keep it low, like 10-12%. That's pretty low for me, but I'd probably move that past the 15% range. Just with the added, rain carnage bullshit that's going on.
Rather than worrying about Truex and Bell together in what you're doing on the optimizer, Grim, I would actually suggest just setting an ownership cap and allowing that to drive it. So if you're going to play that super chalky combo together, you probably want to have like a sub 10% guy in there. So I think you could actually work with ownership caps, which will still allow you to get unique even with chalky combos. So that's the other thing. Using ownership caps is really interesting. And in back testing, back to Dooley, I would be experimenting quite a bit with ownership caps rather than maybe going crazy with the randomization. I think the ownership cap will create a really different set of lineups that might be really interesting. Like yesterday, for example, if you used ownership caps, it might have gotten off that chalky final piece onto a pool who Sensomatic and more used to take down the tournament yesterday. So again, 20 max, take a big stand. Even if that stand is fading the chalkiest driver on the entire slate. Like if your 20 max strategy is I'm fading Bell, fuck him. Everybody's playing that guy, fuck him, right? And then something happens to Bell, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, Now, just
Kind
understand,
of all you need there.
yeah, you just have to allow it. But you also accept that if he's fine the whole track, you have to be comfortable with, if I'm wrong, I'm going to lose, and I'm good with that, because every now and again I'm going to be right about this, and that is going to benefit me. That's how you have to treat the chalk. You got to fade it. What would Bobby Wow do? Just think about Bobby Wow. I think about Bobby Wow all the time.
Do you want a weather update?
Yeah, what do we know?
So right now it's looking like we should be clear from 2 until at least 4. That's when some of the weather comes in. So last year, this total race was 3 hours and 8 minutes. The race before, 3 hours, 14 minutes.
Dude, we're
3
ending
hours,
early.
7. So yeah,
we
should
feels
get
like
2/3 of this race in. So they'll bring us probably past the halfway point, and 4 o'clock is when the chance of weather starts. So we could potentially get most of this race in. But the half race or the reduced race is still in play. So we got to factor in that a bit here.
There it is. There it is. I think we are going. I mean, I don't know. I think it's going to end. I think it's going to end abrupt. And we're either going to be hoping that they bring it back, or crying, or happy and hoping that they don't. Like, I'm in first. Don't. I want it to end early when I'm winning, because that's never happened. Every time we've had an early finish, it's fucked me.
I've had some good ones. I had a lot of Bubba when
I haven't had that good one yet. I've only had the bad.
Is Bubba the last? Correct me if I'm wrong here. Is Bubba the last Cup driver to win a rain shortened race? It was a few years ago, but I can't.
I do remember that win, but didn't.
Well, we had one this year, but like surprise driver.
Didn't Reagan win one years ago?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Busher also won it, like Pocono.
Yeah.
With fog, but that was way back before he was even relevant.
Back to just the optimizer question, since we're live.
Mm-hmm.
Tournament mode. Use tournament mode for this, Dooley. Tournament mode. It is better definitely for NASCAR in general. You want to use tournament mode. Would I consider 0 to 1 of Bell and Truex? Absolutely not. I think they should be together in plenty of lineups. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I think if you're going to put that role on someone, I would put it on Blaney and Elliott.
Yeah. So that's going to do it, guys. We're going to wrap it up here. Hope this breakdown helped for everybody. Ken Caniff wants to play Suarez. Okay.
Need a winner pick.
Winner pick.
Unfortunately, the two favorites are the two guys I would feel very comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, you want to pick Bell, but who the fuck wants 5 to 1 odds?
Yeah. So it's hard to make a play that I feel super strong and stand by. Maybe the winner pick is sort of a concept. Like, we might get a somewhat weird winner. Well, a lot of these guys don't really look like they're the best. I almost want to consider Josh Berry, but I don't think he's quite ready yet. Maybe we see Keselowski go back. I know he had the 100+ winless streak going on. They snapped somewhat recently, but this looks like a good spot for him. And with rain, with pit strategy potentially being high yield. I mean, who's better at pit strategy than Keselowski? Probably no one. So yeah, that kind of sticks out to me. If we're not going with the JGR guy, maybe like Hamlin would be a bold enough play here. But I'm gonna throw out Brad Keselowski as the shocker.
15 to 1 for the shock win.
Yeah, he's no stranger to winning here, but yeah, everyone else I don't really feel all that comfortable with. Keselowski is my best shout for a good win pick.
How about Chris Buescher? 29 to 1. No one wants to play him. Range shortened, randomly in first place. I'm not betting it.
That'd be gross. That'd be disgusting.
29 to 1 odds.
I'm gonna wait till he gets a top 10 here.
Yeah. By the way, if you wanted to lock somebody in 20 max, Kyle Busch is probably that guy.
Crazy enough, I know. It's.
I don't think that's
sounds absurd.
I don't think that's that crazy at all. Like, it's the worst. He gets to 20th. Okay, it's not that bad. 28th, 18th, probably in the nuts. All right, guys, that'll do it. Good luck today. NASCAR helmets up. Make sure you get your DFS Army avatars on your account so we could send you that swag. I'm sending Sendmatic and Jay Moore swag like consistent. Take down a tournament, rocking the DFS Army avatar, show the love, show everybody checking those NASCAR contests you look up. It's like helmet after helmet after helmet after helmet. I want to keep that going. Get that momentum going for
keep hoarding those big wins.
Yeah, and of course, stick around. We're going to get into in the DFS Army YouTube channel here this week. We're getting some best ball content, a little underdog, a little beat the geek action too. Going to put some contests together where everybody can join and play some fantasy football leagues. We want to get that fantasy football thoughts. It's June. It's almost July. It's almost draft season. I've been drafting dynasty drafts all off season, but we're getting into normal draft season, redraft season. So that's coming right around the corner as well.
If you wanted to do your free Caitlin Clark prop on underdog, I actually had a play I really liked. I'm not. Let me check, see if it's still there. Yeah, I think it's still there. One? Nice. Kyle Busch to finish worse than 13.5. Okay. Really good shout there.
Under 13.5.
And then Chris Buescher to finish worse than 12.5. Those are my two favorites off of here. And then if you're going to try to go over on anyone, I think the Keselowski line, like over 9.5 is pretty good. I think he's beat that like 4 or 5 straight times here. And then most of his finishes at short flat tracks this season. He's starting in a pretty decent spot. But yeah, I actually like some of the underdog lines this week.
Can you play underdog?
Love it when I go under. Yes, I can.
Nice.
We can play them all now.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
It's a matter of them actually putting out, more than like 5 lines for racing. That'd be nice. And then prize picks, they kept it stingy this week. They had Christopher Bell 54 lead laps, 41 fast laps. Pretty optimistic outlook. Martin Truex Jr. 42 fast laps, and then Chase Elliott 39.5 lead laps. So
under. Those
seem about right. Yeah, I probably wouldn't mess with going under on a pole sitter at a track like this, but I could see it. I'm much more confident in those underdog lines because they put out way more like finishing position based lines than a prize picks. And with the rain and all that shit in the forecast, and with track history being so important here, I kind of like the unders on a few of these guys that have been pretty notoriously bad. I think even the under on Byron was a pretty good shout.
I love it. Good luck today, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See ya. What's up?
All right.